John Sheldon was 17 years old when a frowning, baby-faced Irishman showed up at the door of his parents' house in Cambridge, Massachusetts. Sheldon, a guitar prodigy, had recently auditioned for the songwriter. Now here the guy was on his porch, all 5'5" of him, with a local upright bass player looming over his shoulder. The teenager didn't know what to make of him. He didn't say very much. We played for a while, and the first thing I remember him saying was, "Are you available for gigs?" And that was how John Sheldon became the guitarist for Van Morrison during the summer of 1968. Morrison was still riding the buzz of Brown-Eyed Girl, but he certainly wasn't a household name. His adopted hometown didn't pay him special attention. I remember one gig at the Boston Tea Party, Sheldon said, but we had no drummer. With Van and the bass player, Tom Kilbania, they drove by Berklee School of Music and saw this guy on the sidewalk. Tom said, "Hey, it's Joe. Joe, do you want to play drums?" This is the kind of level that things were happening at then. Morrison became a constant presence in the Sheldon household. He would tie up the family phone, carrying on epic arguments with Eileen Burns over royalties for Brown-Eyed Girl. My parents would come down for breakfast on Sunday, Sheldon recalls, and it would be a bunch of people they didn't know. Morrison even tried to convince Sheldon's mother to let him move into one of the rooms, along with his wife Janet and her son from a previous relationship, Peter. Mrs. Sheldon firmly said no, but not because she was a square. You have to remember this is the same house that James Taylor and other musicians would just hang out at, Sheldon says. Taylor had become a family friend after dating John's older sister, Phoebe, which is how he ended up teaching Sheldon the basics on a red duosonic Fender he sold him for $100. His parents sometimes complained about the flurry of musicians, but I think that they liked it more than they didn't, Sheldon says. It was something that was good for me. I didn't have much else going. I wasn't doing well in school or anything. According to Sheldon, one day Morrison showed up at rehearsal with some news. He had a dream in which there were no more electric instruments. It was unclear to Sheldon if Morrison's overnight vision was specifically about the band or the world at large, but the singer proceeded to translate his dream into a reality. Kilbania played a stand-up bass. Sheldon moved to acoustic guitar. There would be no more drums. That's when we started playing songs like Madame George, Sheldon says. But he was perplexed. Van had taken me to see Jeff Beck and introduced me, and I thought Jeff Beck was awesome. I wanted to do that kind of music. I didn't want to go back to playing acoustic guitars. Sheldon didn't have a philosophical stance on electric versus folk. He just knew what excited him. Even strangers would judge his allegiance harshly. I got off the subway in Harvard Square with my first electric guitar sticking out of a paper bag, and a guy said, "Oh, another one for the other team." After a long summer of hitting the New England circuit hard with dozens of live shows, Van Morrison was summoned to meet a record producer named Louis Merenstein at Ace Recording Studios, across from Boston Common at 1 Boylston Place, a wide commercial alley off the busy main road. It was hard to miss, with its neon sign and a blinking arrow pointing to the front door. Owned by brothers Milton and Herbert Yackas, Ace was a 4-track facility whose specialty was recording jingles and song poems. Someone would bring a poem in, and for a fee, Milton would compose a song around the words, while Herbert arranged a recording with session players. The author would then own a song he or she had written, amusing friends and family upon playback. Accounts vary about whether Morrison and his band came to Ace just to audition for Merenstein, or if they had already been holed up for a few days to record some demos. Merenstein was familiar with the studio, having worked freelance there in the past. Now Morrison sat before him and began strumming a new song. If I ventured in the slipstream between the viaducts of your dreams. 30 seconds in, my whole being was vibrating, Merenstein said in 2008. I knew he was being reborn. I knew I wanted to work with him at that moment.